Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Today, let's take a look at the whole Twitter imbroglio. As you know, Twitter has approached the federal government seeking to engage with authorities on the indefinite suspension, clamp down on them by Alhaji Lai Mohammed, Minister of Information on behalf of the federal government. Be that as it is, not everybody is in agreement that action of government was not heavy-handed. But then there are also those who do not see it quite like that. But the long and short of it is that Twitter is out of the Nigeria space for now, unless you happen to be, what's those things called, the BVN? No, it's not the BVN. I'll remember, because let me introduce my guests. Mr. Jide Ologun, he's a lawyer and social commentator. As always, thanks a million for coming on.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay then. And Mr. Adebayo Ibrahim Razak, he's also a legal practitioner as well as a public affairs analyst. Before we proceed, you know the details, but let's just refresh your memory. We have a short package summarizing the whole Twitter situation.
The Nigerian government's decision to suspend Twitter over activities it believes threatens the sovereignty of the country has continued to generate a lot of talk. The government had gone further to warn that it would arrest those still using the microblogging site. A suit had subsequently been filed against the government by the Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and 176 concerned Nigerians, arguing the unlawful suspension of Twitter in Nigeria and the criminalization of Nigerians. The ECOWAS court had in a recent ruling prevented the Nigerian government from unlawfully imposing sanctions on Twitter and any other social media service provider, media houses, radio and television stations, and other Nigerians who are Twitter users. It is a matter that came up in council, and the Special Advisor Media and Publicity says the Attorney General of the Federation would advise the federal government on the next step to take.
The Attorney General of the Federation is going to study that report, and then he will advise government on the way forward. The committees set up by the President to engage with Twitter is actually holding a meeting.
The presidency has also denied any involvement in ongoing attempts at the National Assembly to amend the Nigerian Press Council Act and the National Broadcasting Commission Act.
Presidency thing, because the president has nothing to do with that. It's a government thing, and it's the minister that can talk about it.
Certain provisions in the two amendment bills on media laws presently before the National Assembly has caused a lot of concern among media practitioners about this being an attempt to muzzle the press. This is made more worrying by the fact that the move to amend the National Press Council Act and the National Broadcasting Commission Act is being spearheaded by the Minister of Information and Culture. But the presidency makes a clarification that the initiative is a policy that only the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, can address. Also up for discussion was the undertaking of the second peer-reviewed country self-assessment report, which has been approved by President Muhammadu Buhari. Tai Amudu, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, we'll give you a few extra stories, but you know what to do to extract the one that does concern us. And gentlemen, we sort of had some sort of an idea as to where we were on the whole Twitter imbroglio, but then ECOWAS now steps into the matter and has taken a stance. In fact, it is urging the federal government not to go as it has initially intended. I'm talking about the suspension, indefinite suspension. They want a revisit to that whole scenario, as well as some statements that we heard at one time that even if you were to, use a VPN, which was the acronym I was looking for the other time, even if you were to have a virtual private network and can sidestep the whole Twitter ban, I think corporate bodies, individuals who did so would be in some sort of trouble with the law. So that was the way it was, and Twitter has come into it. Let me kick off with you, Jide. Give me your thoughts on where we are now. That is to say, ECOWAS has now sort of come into the matter I won't exactly say appeal, but at least they've taken a stance on the matter that is different from ours.
What the ECOWAS court has done is to give an injunction while attending to the substantive suit. And the injunction is that you cannot prosecute those who use Twitter. And that has to do with fundamental human rights. And even before this pronouncement by the court, it was going to be a difficult thing for the government to prosecute, because how do you go about it? Recently, 2 prominent Nigerians were alleged to still be engaging the Twitter services. And they said we have interest across the world. So we may not even be tweeting from Nigeria. Twitter rolled out in 2006. It's domiciled in California in the USA, and it's providing services to the world. So you can tweet from anywhere. And as it stands now, the matter is still in court, but the court has pronounced that you cannot prosecute, or you should not. But I think we should be more focused on how did we get here?
Okay.
What can we gain out of this? Are these services needed in Nigeria? Why not? We have lost about 44 billion naira.
Indeed. And
since
while
the
they are
suspension.
here, what
can we do?
Are they complying with
Can we
rules and
bring them
regulations?
in? You know, they came to Ghana. Can we bring them in?
I hear you, sir.
Domicile them physically, benefit in forms of taxation, and have access to proper regulation because they are within our environment. And I think that is where the federal government is going to now. So we may have a scenario where you say in artwork that every mistake may give you an opportunity to redesign your concept. So right now, a crisis is giving Nigeria the opportunity to benefit from the juice of Twitter, like some countries where they are domiciled. I mean, definitely in Ghana, they must have registered, created employment for the people, you know, directly. And we also need to come to that level.
Okay. I'll come back to you. How say you, sir, Mr. Adebayo, Ibrahim Razak? What's your take on this whole scenario? Really.
Thank you very much. I also very much agree to some extent with my learned colleague as well on this matter, and the reason being this. I think that when we talk about cyber crimes control, generally from the perspective of what the federal government is trying to achieve, their position is that Twitter creates a platform where some sort of abuse and threat to corporate existence, national security, and all these issues arise. And, you know, it's a major threat and concern to the government. Definitely, every sovereign state would also be very conscious and careful and would do all that it needs to do in order to protect matters of national security. It could even be economic security. It could even be to the extent of rights and privileges of other individuals. But what we are looking at in terms of cybercrime is this, and the control, the management of cybercrimes is this, is that everywhere you find this scenario, there must be a balance, because there's a litmus test.
You're using the word cybercrime. Well, if it's cybercrimes, I don't know that this is about cybercrimes. That is, nobody can even argue or hold a discussion on whether or not we should clamp down on cybercrimes. No, that's not the issue. The issue is whether Twitter, nowadays, whether Twitter is actually operating as a good corporate citizen. In fact, does it see itself as a citizen at all?
Well, I mean, we're still coming back to that same factor. I mean, the activities on the platform is what makes the government unhappy. Oh. And in the context of the activities, you are saying, look, it was used as a platform for promoting NSAS, so much uprising and crisis in the country and all that. But the truth is this, that with government and the control, the management of social media and other facilities such as micro-blogging sites, what we still continue to tell the government is this, that your actions must be seen more as a legal action other than a political action. And in striking the balance, obviously you must protect your sovereignty. You must get Twitter as a corporate body to comply with the rules and the regulations,
which has not been the case until now.
Environment.
All of that, they've just been cruising free
on those factors. Yes. And the reason why is because the government has not provided a template through which they can effectively then engage this parent corporation and ensure that they comply with their rules and regulations.
Okay. The SERAP has taken the federal authorities to court on this whole matter. That's typical. They will take up what they consider any human rights issue. And since so very many Nigerians are complaining that this infringes, it reminds me that even in Canada, where just the other day, I think day before yesterday, if not yesterday, the news came out that, in Canada, the ruling party there has actually floated a bill. They've passed a certain stage. They still work on it. Some people are warning that, wait, and what the intent of the bill that was passed in Canada just a couple of days ago was that, you shall conform to all the regulations that our national broadcasters. We're not making anything special for you, but our TV stations, our radio stations, all you guys that are also broadcasting stuff, just do what they do. Infringe any of the rules that they infringe and can accept to be, shouted out. The same will happen to you. By the way, just before you go into this, what do you think of that whole Canadian approach?
It's excellent. You see, when God created the Garden of Eden, where we can find the first earthly government, he rolled out regulations. Do this, don't do this. The essence of the government, let's start from Nigeria, is to regulate relationships, whether in the business circle or political circle or social circle, so that we have sanity. And specifically in Nigeria, we have unity, faith in the project Nigeria, peace and progress. And Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So anything that threatens the security and the welfare of the people must draw the attention of the government. But the question now is that, have we put in place sufficient regulatory models to ensure that we benefit? Sir, we know it. You may not afford to barb your hair in America because you cannot just open a shop and say this is barber's shop. Things are regulated. You are trained for the services, you can be traced, and that's what we are saying. It's a very good opportunity for Nigeria to say, okay, Twitter, you've been operating in the air, now we want to bring it to the ground for Nigerians to benefit. So Canadian government, they have their regulations. This is not a new thing. China has a very strict regulation. Yeah. You talk of Iran, you talk about North Korea, all right?
People who
even
are
it will surprise you that you may not be as free with WhatsApp in the UAE like you are in Nigeria. Okay. But you must synergize with the good intention of governance to bring benefits to the people. And I think where the challenge is now is that we are reacting because the tweet of the president was deleted. Yeah. And can we now run away from that tweet? What was that tweet? The fact that the younger ones now that are agitating may not know about what happened during the Civil War, and those of them who were, key players. Okay. We deal with them in the language they understand. And tweet reckoned that this may promote. No,
the Twitter. Sorry, sir. Twitter didn't reckon. From what I understand, people complained. People complained to Twitter. They have it on their site there where you can
complain. And they reckon on the basis of the complaints.
And if there are enough complaints, they will look at it seriously. And this their own serious look at it now meant, you know what, we're going to take this out. That needs to be said. And there are people who have spoken against that. That look, they remember that even that Donald Trump, the president of the U.S. at the time, he was so blocked and so on and so forth. So there is that aspect to it. But don't forget that you remember that Alhaji Lai Mohammed, the Minister of Information, he had been on this program when he had said that government, and this was about over a year ago, that government feels a need, and this was in the wake of hate speech, fake news, confusing everybody, showing all sorts of macabre scenes, and people didn't know what to believe anymore. So Alhaji Lai Mohammed at the time, which was about a year ago, had said that government was looking for ways to regulate this whole matter. It didn't go down well with Nigerians, and Nigerians let him know their mind. Everybody said, no, that's not going to work. Now this one, I don't know how they put it. Whether Twitter now, so to speak. So, but you know, this is not a foreign idea to Nigeria. Nigeria has always been seeking to, you know, to regulate social media, because NTA, TVC, Arise, whoever, you can't just wake up and start putting stuff on air without expecting somebody to check you. And they're saying that YouTube, the WhatsApp, whatever, no, WhatsApp is a closed network. You guys need to be you need to be checked. So where is the government, fault in all of this, or problem in all of this?
All right, thank you. Let me just quickly highlight, if you do not mind, a litmus test for how government should legitimately regulate or look into control of, materials or broadcast media on the social media.
Okay.
It says that first, this is from the United Nations Charter. It says first, it must be in pursuit of a legitimate aim and in accordance with an existing national law, which comes back to what he has said, that there must be an existing national law that is accessible to the citizens in order to enable those citizens regulate their behavior and reasonably foresee the powers of the authority, which is the government, in the enforcement of those laws and the consequences of their own actions when they don't comply with this law. It then says that these laws must be precise. It must avoid providing the state authority with unbound discretions to apply the limitation. And finally, it says that it must not be vague, overboard in justification, such as on specific reference to national security, extremism, terrorism, do not qualify as an adequate, clear law. And so it finally says in this litmus test that the restriction must be necessary and proportionate to the threat that justifies their implementation. A proper relationship between the legitimate aim pursued by states and the actions of the states to achieve that legitimate aim, the process through which they go about it, and that action must be proportionate to the interest that is protected. And what is this is saying?
It's self-explanatory.
It's self-explanatory.
It's excellent. That's the United Nations Charter.
On regulating, activities of social media and suppliers, microbloggers, and all that.
Different countries around the world will be as close to that as they can possibly get.
So the United Nations itself is encouraging the existence of a national law in dealing with this enterprise, and that in dealing with them, that the intention of the government must be commensurate to the approach, the timing, and the pattern in which they implement this law, such as not to breach human rights perspective of law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adebayo, for that, because that is really, it really helps a lot. That's the United Nations Charter. As you know, it is a charter. It is the United Nations. People, do their best to approach it. They usually are not in sync entirely around the world. Till today, America is not agreeing to climate change, all the charter on climate change.
Under Donald Trump.
Even before Donald Trump, America will recognize the charter and say that, well, you see, it's all right. We're just coming. But seriously, let's put on our imaginative cap now. The Twitter is looking to engage with the federal authorities. We have a number of very senior government officials that they have mentioned will be engaging with them. So what would you, this is where the imaginative cap comes on, what would you want the ultimate resolution of this engagement between government and Twitter? What would you like it to look like?
Let's make money from Twitter. Twitter has an annual revenue as at the evaluation at the end of 2020
a tax-paying
of about $3.7 billion annually.
Yes.
We should have a taste of that if we have about 40 million subscribers in Nigeria.
And these subscribers are saying that it is the source of their, a major plank of their business.
Exactly. So a lot of Nigerians operate online.
Yes.
It's affecting them. We've lost about 44 billion naira.
Wait now, but what has the federal government lost by Twitter not paying tax?
Revenue, of course. We know, sir, on this table that NNPC has told us that they are drifting towards zero remittance to the federation account. And you know the import of that.
Yeah.
You know that as we speak today, that the total indebtedness of Nigeria is about 33.11 trillion naira. You see, we are in crisis. So, and we talk about foreign direct investment. It's not a big. Nigerians are IT
savvy people.
Savvy people. They have services to back up this. And again, by extension, I want to see a government that is even looking beyond negotiating with a private business like Twitter to say how can we empower our young ones to have our own platforms and deploy it to the world.
Ada has called in from Jos, and I don't want to keep her waiting lest I lose her. Good morning, Ada.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Yeri. Good morning to your guest.
Yes,
it's very interesting indeed. Any law that cannot be universally applied or implemented is as good as being useless. In the case of Twitter, people can tweet from anywhere or any other platform. As much as I agree with the federal government that Twitter could be a threat to our nation root, we will be living in a fool's paradise to pass the buck of all our intentions, etc., in the country to Twitter. Please, I'm using your platform to appeal to Mr. President to give us good governance which will ensure justice, equity, and fair play. I support the idea of making Twitter a tax. Please, can your guest tell us if Nigeria is right to disobey ECOWAS injunction? God bless you. Let's not give up on this country.
Thank you very much for calling in. What was that last bit? I didn't.
The country was right in disobeying the ECOWAS
have they disobeyed?
I don't know that we have disobeyed.
Because there's been no prosecution.
I think the point there is that people took it that the ECOWAS court said the suspension should be removed. No. What the injunction is targeting is that you cannot prosecute. And I doubt if anyone has been prosecuted right now. So we cannot just outrightly claim that the federal government is disobeying.
Okay. Now, the whole matter of the virtual private network, aka VPN, that people are using, I think they warned against that. You could actually sidestep, this particular dispensation. And by being in Nigeria and appearing to be, tweeting from Germany, from the UK, from wherever. That's on the one hand, and that's why when it is said that there are some Nigerians that are still breaking the law by still tweeting, there are a number of Nigerians that we know very closely locally here, but also live abroad. They also live abroad. So when they're in their second home, or where is it, their fourth home, when they're abroad and they tweet, it will, because we know them very popularly, it will still come through, and it will seem that they're tweeting. But perhaps they're tweeting from beyond our shores. Good morning, Lawrence, in the UK. Lawrence?
Thank you. And
good morning, sir.
Morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
I'm listening to you guys. What you are saying, I'm very grateful to listen to you guys. I'm the first time caller. I've been trying to get this.
Oh, we're delighted to have you, Lawrence. Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Regarding what I say, I'm listening to your audience there. When we talk about when the government is talking about the masses using Twitter in a wrongful manner. Now, when the masses are discussing about the government, who checks the government? Because if the government is now banning Twitter because of the people tweeting, now who will ban the government because they are tweeting? Because if you want to talk about who is putting false information, I believe it's the government. It's Mullah Mohammed that is putting false information more than every other person. Now, who is going to be checking it?
Wait now, Mr. Lawrence. We can't let that slip. We can't let that slip by. Mr. Lawrence, you got to take back what you just said. You said the Honorable Minister of Information of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is, what did you say, tweeting false information? No, that can't be. But thank you very much for calling, nevertheless. Now, you see, the question is, how far can government go? I think that's what people are saying, that government went too far. That's what people are saying. Well, whether the government went too far or not, it remains to be, seen following the whole negotiation thing that they will be doing. But you yourself helped me out. I said that Canada, they've just done it. Although what they did was different. They didn't suspend indefinitely.
They're creating a legislation to manage and regulate the activities.
Yes.
Which is what is expected of perhaps the legislative institution here. I think that they tried to achieve it with the social media bill in 2019, and what they were not able to do is to trash out the differences where the public had reservation, had concern that these laws were more of politically motivated than intending to create an enabling environment which would be safe for Nigerians. And I think that the reason why the legislative institution is always the best place to put in place these regulations and this guideline is because we know that every member of the legislative institution out there represents a particular constituency or a community of people. And therefore, in making laws or in inputs in the process of law, they will definitely be sounding out the mind of their people and be making the laws not for the government, or for the archive of the government, but in the interest and for the welfare and the well-being of the people. And that's why we say that it is always the best to achieve this through legislation than an executive order, because the executive order would not have the consciousness of the people all the time.
It doesn't even have the force of law beyond the tenure of the president that executed it. But good morning, Mr. Yakub.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
And then good morning to your two guys in the studio.
Sure.
Good morning.
We do respect to the last caller, even though he has his personal opinion concerning this topic. And then it is right, it's right to say something, but not to say anything that he likes. Because, yes, I have said this before. We must have a country before Twitter. Even though some of us are using this Twitter, and then the government have taken it down, and then the same government now set up a committee or panel, quote and unquote, also to be that they should look into this thing, and then in the nearest or in the nearest week, all these things may be settled. Not that somebody will not call to the studio. I'm not calling to defend the honorable minister. In fact, I'm of opinion that honorable minister could have been given another portfolio because it was never done well in terms of information, in terms of what Nigerian government are doing positively. That is my own personal opinion as well. But to tell Nigerians that honorable minister of information of Nigerian are tweeting something that is not relevant as he put it, it is
falsehoods. Not
falsehoods.
He said falsehoods.
How can he say that?
Well,
he was talking with the passion, but Mr. Chiviori, I want to use this opportunity to tell Nigerians. Twitter is an entity. It is a private company. You cannot just come to our country and then begin to make sure that the country is going down. That is what the government is saying. I'm not calling to supporting the government, but let's look it into another way around. Yes, all of us are using it. In fact, I said something on Twitter. But there's another platform that every one of us can use. In fact, Nigerian government should give Nigerian youth a chance to even give us another app for us to be using, like India. Not that you'll be facing, what is the Twitter? Nigerian youth can do more than that. They can do better than that.
All right.
And God bless you.
Indeed, thank you very much. Well, these will be later on, things that we will look at later on. Whether indeed we can come up and we can get Nigerians to accept it, because all these social media platforms, they're all sort of global platforms. I mean, somebody in Japan, if you can read Japanese script, you can be tweeting between yourself and Japan. There's even translation. So it's a global thing, and a lot of Nigerians felt it. But the official position of government is that they are doing our national integrity harm by the kind of things they allow on their platform. And I think government wants to address that and is in the process of doing so. Now, whether it has gone about it in a way that will satisfy most Nigerians, that, okay, we understand, that's another matter altogether. But good morning, Mr. George.
And greetings to your guests.
Thank you.
Uncle Yori, I would like to address this topic from the cause, not from the effects. A good doctor addresses the cause of an ailment before addressing the effects of that ailment. Let's look at what caused this Twitter brouhaha. It's insecurity. The president is tweeting about security situation in one part of the country. And he used a language that Twitter considers to be offensive to his policy. But what should we be looking at? Is it the cancellation or the removal of the president's tweet or that security situation that concerns all Nigerians? Uncle Yori, IPOB is a prescribed organization. And for how many years now, the government prescribed it, that organization was still effective. The corporate ran away. There is a senator today that stood shortly for him. The senator is still moving around, criticizing government. Nothing is done to him. The law provides that if you guarantee somebody and for bail and the person escapes, you will be held responsible. The government has not done that. What am I saying, Uncle Yori? The government in its own action has over-tolerated this organization that they have to get to where they are today. They have become a thorn in the flesh of not only the eastern people in this country, but the whole of this country. Now the government is addressing the effects instead of addressing the cause. We should address the insecurity aspect of it. I have no objection to the government regulating Twitter. We cannot live in a country without laws. We cannot be making money in our country and inflaming our security situation. I don't agree with that.
All right.
But the first things should be done first. This is my concern. Good morning.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. Gentlemen, I'm sure you want to weigh in on that, but I'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. And stay with us, please. We'll continue to include your calls. Okay, welcome back with Mr. Jide Ologun and Mr. Adebayo Razak. I think is Razak Adebayo.
Razak Adebayo.
Is Razak Adebayo. I know the two gentlemen are lawyers and also commentators on public affairs. And we're looking at the whole Twitter imbroglio vis-a-vis the request of Twitter to engage with federal authorities on the matter. The authorities are not adverse to that. They've even named some high government functionaries that probably will be part of that team. But in the meantime, we're looking at how we got, as Mr. George put it, how did we get to this stage? There's another aspect to the whole matter. But I think we need to just be reminding ourselves from time to time that Twitter didn't just wake up and ban, and take down the president's tweet. I believe Nigerians, but certainly a large number of Twitter account holders petitioned to Twitter and they examined it and said, it does infringe. In fact, they even called it in the area of hate speech. I understand I have, Mr. Brown in Abuja? Engineer Brown in Abuja?
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for this topic.
Thank you.
I want to agree with the last caller who said the matter should be addressed, the cause, not the effect. Now, what happened? The language, the president used the language that not just people from the east or the member of the IPOB found offenses. The whole Nigerians, and even from outside the world, found out that what the president said was unbecoming of his country. And that was the reason Twitter took off the president's tweet. Now, why did the government not think of regulating Twitter all this? Why is it that it is only when did the president or the government is not in agreement with that they now thought of regulating? Why didn't the regulation come before now? Why? I look at it, I see that the president and the big government in particular does not like the criticism. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or any other social media, or even an individual, the moment you criticize or find maybe you have an opinion, another opinion apart from that of the government, you become an enemy straight away.
Okay.
So my own opinion is that this government should be tolerant.
Okay.
When you have done something wrong and you are being criticized, at least go back and look at what you did wrong. If you need to come out, you have to own up to it. Okay, yes, I used the wrong language. You are a president, you are like a father to the country. And you made a statement that the whole country found offensive and complained to Twitter. It wasn't members of IPOB alone.
Okay, thank you very much. We get your drift, Engineer Brown, and thank you very much for calling in. But Engineer Brown also, inter alia, there said something about them being not too welcoming of criticism. I don't know. It depends on what you think of it, because I didn't get the impression that Nigerians do not criticize their government and their leaders, and they do so without. It depends. Everything has a method. Nigerians, are vocal in criticizing the administration, criticizing individual people, and I don't know that there's been any comeuppance as a result. When you get abusive and when you begin to say things that you cannot, for instance, provide evidence for, I imagine people will approach you and say, there's no problem that you said what you said, but where is the evidence? I don't know if you see it differently. Nigerians criticize.
Yes, I would say that this is democracy.
Yeah.
And in democracy, dissenting opinions should be welcome.
And Nigerians are quite vocal with their dissenting opinions.
Yes. And I want us to look at Twitter also as a political revolutionary tool. It's not just an economic revolutionary tool, it's also a political revolutionary tool. We all know that Africa by large, and Nigeria in particular, has a very youthful dominant population. So for example, the classical medias like the TVC, the NTA, the LTVs and the rest of the channels, there's likelihood that the larger population, which is youth dominant, would not take as much interest in those classical media as much as they would take in the...
But as you know, all those organizations, in short, every TV station, every radio station in the Federal Republic of Nigeria
is regulated,
operates under a set of guidelines.
And
there is a broadcast code, a broadcasting code.
Now, there's also this perception that classical media is sometimes gagged intentionally, by these laws to not allow certain reach and certain level of free speech. And so with the social media space, it's safer advocacy. So if you go on the
social media is free for all. Nobody checks you. Everybody is a publisher. You know what you need to set up before you can broadcast.
You're right.
But all you just need is a cell phone and you become a broadcaster.
For example,
and you speak to millions at the same time.
And the speed and broadness of that message.
Thank you. So people need to take cognition of what's going on. Kingsley in Asaba. So sorry to keep you waiting. Good morning, sir. Kingsley?
Thank you very much for having me now. Yes.
Okay,
I just want to correct an impression.
Sure.
From some of the callers who said all Nigerians were displeased, that people abroad were displeased with the comment that was deleted, the comment of the president that was deleted. Please, that is not correct. That is very, very wrong for that caller to have said that. And I'll give you a reason. One, we cannot analyze the president's comment, and most times it is viewed from the political divide these days. A lot of us don't no longer say the truth, or don't like the president, so whatever he says is wrong. A certain group of Nigerians, not all Nigerians, please, reported that comment. But please, can we analyze the comments?
Well, let's not go through that. We don't have the time to do that, sir.
The president said certain people are misbehaving. Certain people, not the people from Southeast. And he was referring particularly to report. So what is wrong with that comment? And secondly, is it not even hurtful and painful that we now have a platform that can sit down and say, President of Nigeria, your comment is wrong, we delete it. Let's not all see it from the angle of not liking the president, but let's look at it for reality. How terrible has it become that a platform would just delete the comment of our president?
But some are saying that when it happened to Donald Trump, he didn't do anything. He understood. When it happened to Donald Trump, I don't know what you think. Do you think the two instances are not similar and comparable?
Okay, the two instances are not similar, and I will tell you why.
Okay.
Donald Trump continued to put false information. They didn't delete it, following him up there. He tweeted for over 1 month false information, but he will not tag it and say this information cannot be verified. It went to the extreme before they deleted.
Okay, I hear you.
Yes.
So, but what you are making is that it is not every Nigerian or most Nigerians that were angry with the comment, as somebody had said. That's the point you wanted to make, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. How would you? I think we were talking about how this should be resolved, could be resolved, because I think Nigerians want Twitter, and I think government doesn't not want Twitter. It just wants Twitter to be in and to just conform like any other law-abiding organization. That's all. Yeah. And that they believe that without any guidelines, that you gentlemen have said that, well, it's not Twitter's fault, maybe, that we are the people that should have the guidelines. And then they will know. And I like particularly the United Nations Charter that you had read that specifies how this thing can work.
I think what we should bring out of this is what we intended to bring out when we shut down the land borders of Nigeria. We intended to develop the agricultural capacities of the country, but extensively we could not achieve much because of the insecurity in the land. Right now, the UAE has Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. Can we look inward and develop IT capacity? You know, can Nigeria even step aside and say, okay, we also want to dominate the space in the economic environment in the world? And that will lead us to deal with the foundational issues prompting this, what we are discussing now. Can there be security in Nigeria? My answer is yes.
Okay.
Can there be prosperity? Yes. Can we stop this embarrassment? Yes. In Switzerland, debating with Twitter now.
One of government's attitudes might be these things you have said, yes, yes, yes. Why tweet about those ones? Tweet about those ones as well.
They've tweeted about great things.
Okay.
Have they not tweeted that Nigeria is more secured in 2020 than it was in 2015? Yeah. Did anything happen? What we are saying, that let's have good governance, and we'll have time for all this mundane.
Let me not lose Ray in Ikoyi. Good morning, Ray.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank you very much for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, we're delighted to have you.
Okay, I've listened to so many comments. I just want to say that now the comment says people that the platform, Twitter allows the platform to be used, you know, to share comments that are
injurious to the corporate existence of Nigeria.
Okay? So Twitter is a free app. Okay, once you download your app, so the app is free. People don't pay for it. It's not if they come to here and make money. That's not true. People are not paying for a free app. Nobody subscribes to use Twitter, and then nobody sits down and looking at tweets that are coming out. It is people that report. When you see a tweet that is unhealthy, you report, and then Twitter acts. So nobody sits down looking at tweets coming in. So the government is getting it wrong. So it's a free app. Twitter is not making money from Nigeria. People don't pay, they don't subscribe to use Twitter. So they should know that people that are using the Twitter, they use it for their own business to make money. You know, so they don't pay Twitter, they don't subscribe. So the government is getting wrong on those getting all those information. Okay. Twitter is just making money from Nigeria without making money to the federal government. That's a lie. You know, so
I hear you. Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Ray. Calling in from Ikoyi, first-time caller. We're delighted to have joined the family, so to speak. You know, Twitter doesn't make money. Indeed, all of this will come out of, you know, don't know that this whole engagement.
Yeah.
So, how is Twitter? How does Twitter make its revenue? It largely through adverts and that kind of a thing.
And the traffic.
And the whole traffic thing. So it might not exclusively be a matter of subscription fees. I don't know. But those who are expert in these matters will certainly get to the bottom of it. Twitter needs to be registered. Some have said it needs to be registered. It needs to be identifiable, not just out there in the air and we can't do anything apart from what has just been done, which is, you know, block access to Twitter. In Ghana, they will behave differently, I imagine. And this is the ground that people are trying to level. Some people, some have even called in to tell us, not on today's program, but before, that what's this whole hullabaloo? It's much ado about nothing, some have said. But I don't know if you agree with that.
The impact on our economy is quite remarkable. We have a group of young ones and business personalities that have migrated.
Just as you began to speak, Mazi Okorafor came in, and you know, we usually defer to
yes.
visitors from afar, and he's as far away in Arochukwu. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our guests in the studio.
Yeah.
Honest, Saturday, and our guests. We should talk about the progress of this country. In our country, I'm talking about the security and health-wise. These are the three cardinal things a country takes into: security, health, and education. Now, and this economic also under education. If you don't empower your people, what are you doing? Government cannot give everybody employment. Now, people are using this tweet and the rest to make to get to any living. Now, suspending this thing or hanging it now, it's not healthy. Many Nigerians are complaining. When you look at people's frustration written on their faces and depression.
Okay.
Now, what do you know? Many people that have been hanging since all this issue of ban, which is not healthy. The government should think well, but there are so many people are thinking, where will they go up, or where will they rely on that day-to-day business, or what to do now? The question is this: we normally chase symptoms, we don't chase the causes. These are the Nigerian major problems we are facing. And that is why when we have the program, we have good policy, no implementation, no monitoring. Government should go back and think about 85 Nigerians that are still looking for how to feed. Not the question of 3 times, at least 2 times in a day. Agreed. See, Twitter don't need, Nigeria need Twitter, not Twitter needing us. Because it's an international retailer, and you're telling them to come and they can't break you.
Twitter has the most subscribers in Nigeria of Africa, or shall I say West Africa, for sure. The largest subscriber block of Twitter is in Nigeria.
Yes, but what you are talking about, at least we should bring in all these international Mr. Yuri and our guests in the studio. We are now on digital era. Let us not draw our face back to analog.
Okay.
No more analog.
Okay, Mazi. I will take your point. Thank you very much for contributing it. You know, it's, I don't know. I suppose all the other social media sites are watching this very, very carefully. Yeah. Because in the Canadian example that I cited, where they have gone the way of, you shall conform, all these online platforms, you shall conform to what our own national broadcasters conform to. They specifically mentioned YouTube. I think they mentioned Twitter as well. So there's still WhatsApp. No, sorry, that's a closed network. But somebody was pointing out that in the Saudi Kingdom, you know, the access to even WhatsApp, that is a closed network, is not all that straightforward like that. So these are the situations that other bloggers needs to be watching very, very carefully. Instagram is another very popular one, and people are really, really, you know, doing their thing on Instagram. So I'm sure it wouldn't want any sort of a disaster. I hear someone else is coming on. Yeah, good morning. Chidi from Kafanchan. Good morning, sir. Probably I'll ask.
Good morning, Chief Yuri.
Okay,
good morning, your guest.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Let me add a little to the discussion you are making concerning the Twitter ban in Nigeria.
Sure.
I would like the government, if they would have a listening ear, to number one, develop the skill of absorbing criticism from Nigerians and from every other quarter. Two, let everything that is necessary and needful be done to reconcile the Nigerian government condition as well as of that of the Twitter. Because Twitter is of immense benefit to Nigerians and as well as to the government.
Okay.
Because we are now in a global and digital village.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much for calling in as well, sir. And you know, well, very shortly we'll have to go away, but the government needs to be careful to not, as it were, shut down the voice of Nigerians, because that is a very important part. Even this government subscribes to, you know, freedom of speech and the right to free speech. And even if that speech is not in favor of government, so far as it is not seditious, you know, it is not treasonable and all of that, nobody worries you. That's my experience. What's yours? Is it any different? You can't just criticize that they're not doing this right or they don't like that policy and then you get in trouble. I don't believe anybody. That means half of our guests here would be answering questions. Nobody's answering questions. You guys come on, you say what you want.
It's not just what we want. These things are documented. For
example,
example, now, if we were to be discussing the recent statement of
maybe I should it shouldn't be what you want. You say stuff that they might consider
what is
critical.
lawful.
But if it is lawful, nobody worries anybody now.
Critical because they are not looking in the direction of the need for development. The sustainable development goals are there.
But they still don't worry you.
What is wrong in having a secured nation? What is wrong in having prosperity in a country that is so blessed by God? What is wrong in demanding for justice, for equity? What is wrong?
I think the most important thing, I think we all agree on that. The people have a right to speak, a right to free speech, and these devices are avenues of that free speech.
And
because even though I was highlighting the case of Canada, there is the opposition that have said that all this thing you are doing is going to impact on the free speech of the citizenry. So it's not as if it's a done deal in Canada. There are still hurdles because there are people who are going to come back on it. And
Uncle Yori, permit me to roll out this Chinese maxim.
Let it be very brief,
that
please.
You cannot carve a rotten wood. This is a matter of reputation. Do good and it will reflect. And I think that's my submission for today.
Thank you very much. Did you have any last word that you wanted to add?
Mine is this, that government must also be aware that not just citizens can constitute a risk or a threat to national security, that if they are not conscious in their actions and intentional and legitimate in their actions, it could also constitute a threat to national security as well too.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Razak Ibrahim Adebayo, lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you, sir, Mr. Jide Olokun.
God bless Nigeria.
Indeed. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
God bless you too.
That's our program out there. COVID hasn't gone away, but the way people are carrying on, you think it had gone away altogether. So let me just, do a little micro rant. Remember to use a face mask as necessary. Still remember social distancing, wash your hands frequently, and I think